Imagine this. Nearly 60%, yeah, 60% of married couples say they face significant tension with their in-laws. That's not just a personal thing, right? It's this huge widespread challenge. It puts a quiet strain on so many marriages. But what if you could actually transform that tension, turn it into, I don't know, a path towards peace, maybe even make your relationship stronger?
That's exactly what we're aiming for in this deep dive. We want to get past the usual jokes and stereotypes. We're here to give you real practical strategies, stuff backed by psychology to help you navigate these, tricky in-law dynamics. The goal is simple. Give you the tools to set clear, respectful boundaries, protect your marriage, foster genuinely positive family interactions, and all while keeping your own well-being, your own peace front and center. It's really about finding that balance, that harmony.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Because it all starts with understanding why. Why are these boundaries with in-laws so critical? At its heart, having healthy boundaries. It's about preserving the unity and, frankly, the autonomy of your marriage, your partnership. They define what's okay, what isn't, what roles people play in your new family unit, and crucially, how you all interact without them. Well, you're basically opening the door to misunderstandings, conflicts, things that can really chip away at your marriage. It's like a self-preservation for the couple.
Exactly right. And when those boundaries are fuzzy or maybe just not there at all, that's when you see the problems crop up, like over-involvement. In-laws interfering in decisions could be money, parenting, holidays, you name it. And this builds up. It leads to huge frustration, resentment, just a lot of stress for both partners, like a constant background hum of tension. What's really interesting, and you see this a lot in the research, is how often this plays out between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. It often becomes this kind of power struggle land.
Power struggle land.
You mentioned that. What's the biggest misunderstanding, do you think, from each side? What fuels that dynamic? Because, the source material definitely highlights how delicate that relationship is.
That's a really key question. For the mother-in-law, there's often this unconscious need for acknowledgement, for her son to maybe still prioritize her in some ways, or for her parenting methods to get some validation. She feels this protective thing for him still. And then on the other side, the daughter-in-law, she needs to feel welcomed, valued, like she's truly the primary partner now. She wants, and rightly so, her needs and views to be prioritized in her new family. The misconception, it's often that it's a zero-sum game. The mother-in-law might worry she's losing her place, right? Well, the daughter-in-law feels like she has to, fight for hers. This idea of competition, this fear, that's exactly where the sparks fly. And we see real examples of this constantly, like Susan and John, a couple who ended up in counseling over this. Susan was just at her breaking point. Her in-laws were, quote, critical and blatantly meddling. And John, the husband, he felt totally stuck in the middle. Between his mom and his wife, he just wasn't getting his priorities straight, He wasn't fully backing his wife. And that's a classic example of what people sometimes call the husband problem. It's so common. The spouse has to realize, okay, my partner comes first now, then my family of origin.
Precisely. And this husband problem, it often means the spouse is caught in what we sometimes call FOG. That's fear, obligation, and guilt about how their family will react. It's this deeply wired thing, almost subconscious, seeking approval, avoiding conflict with parents. It makes it incredibly hard for them to put the marriage first. They might be scared of upsetting mom and dad, feel they have to keep the old family dynamics going, or feel guilty setting limits. Making that Schnitt allegiance, it's absolutely paramount if the marriage is going to thrive.
Okay, so if that's the core issue, how do we start fixing it? That brings us to actually setting and communicating boundaries. And this is where it gets really interesting, because boundaries, they're primarily for you. They say what you're okay with and how you'll respond. It's not about controlling someone else. It's about saying clearly, look, if you do X, I will do Y. It sounds simple, but that shift in focus is huge, isn't it?
It's absolutely foundational. And how you have these conversations, well, that matters a ton. You want to start these talks with sensitivity, diplomacy, explore what each of you expects, what concerns you both have about the in-laws, and crucially, use those assertive but empathetic I statements. So instead of, you always just show up, it's so rude, you try something like, I feel overwhelmed when visits are unannounced because it throws off our schedule and I really value our private time. See, it shifts from blame to your needs, your feelings.
That sounds so logical. But let's be honest. When you're feeling emotional, it's tough to remember, I feel overwhelmed. Is there like a quick trick, something practical for someone just starting out to stop them from just defaulting to blaming you statements?
Yeah, a simple tactic is just to pause, literally. Take a deep breath and try to reframe it in your head first. Before you say anything, ask yourself, okay, What feeling am I having right now? And what need isn't being met? That forces you to connect with yourself rather than just pointing fingers. And don't just think about it, practice. Role-playing different scenarios with your partner can be super helpful. Then you kind of have those phrases ready to go when you need them.
Right. Practice makes, well, maybe not perfect, but better. So what specific areas need these lines drawn? The sources mention several key ones. First, there's privacy, right? Protecting your personal space, your relationship space. Then decision-making autonomy, especially parenting. Your parenting style, that's the final word for your kids.
Exactly. Other big ones include time and visits, things like scheduling visits ahead of time, setting clear rules for calls and texts, limits on how much time you spend together, especially around holidays, and definitely putting a stop to those spontaneous, unannounced drop-ins, financial boundaries too, being really clear about any support given or received, and protecting your financial privacy. And yeah, unsolicited advice, you can be grateful, sure, but gently redirect. Say you'll ask for advice when you need it. Oh, and access to your home. Do they get keys? Do they need to ask before coming over? These are concrete things needing clarity.
Okay, so you've set the boundaries, you've had the conversation, but then they get crossed. Because let's face it, they probably will at some point. This is often where the real test begins, right? So how do you handle violations, not just gracefully, but effectively, so the message actually sticks?
Right. Once they're clearly communicated, the next step is vital. Respond promptly, calmly, and reassert the boundary you set. Staying composed is just essential. If things get heated, if emotions rise, take a break, step away for a bit to cool down before talking again. The focus has to be on solving the problem consistently, not, winning the argument. But here's the thing, and this is so important. Boundaries mean nothing without consequences.
That's a really crucial point. Saying this is my line is one thing. Enforcing it, totally different ballgame. You have to be clear about what happens if they keep crossing that line. It might feel a bit harsh, but it's necessary. Like if you show up uninvited, I won't answer the door. Or if you keep bringing up this topic after I've asked you not to, I'll have to end the call. And the real magic here, consistency. You have to follow through every single time, no matter what. That's how you teach them the old ways won't work anymore. Being inconsistent. That just confuses everyone. Predictable follow-through. That's the only language that really changes these ingrained patterns.
Absolutely. There is this example from Reddit, right? Parents just showed up uninvited, even after being told no, they were expecting dinner, and the advice given was blunt. You have plans. Doesn't matter what they're painting your nails, walking the dog, whatever. The key was the couple didn't respond, didn't bend, they just went about their evening quietly. The parents eventually left, never saw the couple, and apparently never did it again. That's how learning happens. It's tough love, maybe, but it works.
It really does. And sometimes the lessons come from unexpected, maybe even awkward moments. There was another example, subtler maybe. In-laws had a garage coat, kept letting themselves in unannounced, led to them walking in on something very private. The consequence wasn't a big confrontation, just the implied exposure. But guess what? They started calling before visiting after that. That kind of uncomfortable truth approach, while maybe not for everyone, it highlights something essential. The need for a united front.
Exactly. Whether it's subtle or direct, none of these boundary strategies really work unless both partners are standing firm, together. Which leads us right into the next non-negotiable, that united front. Involving your partner isn't just nice, it's critical, absolutely vital. Presenting yourselves as a team, that reinforces the strength of your marriage. You and your partner have to agree on these strategies, align your expectations, your priorities.
And this is often where we run into the husband problem again. The sources acknowledge it's common a spouse, often the son, defending or dismissing the in-laws' behavior. We talked about FOG, fear, obligation, guilt. But beyond that, why is it sometimes so hard for a spouse to shift that primary loyalty from their family growing up to their partner now, even when they know it's the right thing?
Well, it's often really deeply ingrained, maybe from childhood, that need for parental approval, the comfort of how things always were, and the fear, maybe unconscious, of being seen as disloyal. It can be incredibly powerful. To get past this, couples need to negotiate, find agreements through compromise, flexibility. Active listening is huge. Validating each other's feelings, supporting each other emotionally through these tough conversations. But bottom line, the spouse whose family it is, they must prioritize the marriage first. Then their role as son or daughter. Their primary commitment, you could say, is now to their marriage. That fundamental shift has to happen.
Okay, so beyond the practical how-tos, there's a deeper psychology here, isn't there? Understanding that can really change how you approach things, like attachment styles. They play a big role. Secure attachment, people with that tend to trust, communicate openly, build positive connections more easily. But maybe someone has an anxious style. They crave closeness, but fear rejection. Or avoidant, they pull back from intimacy. That can create insecurity or distance with in-laws too. Just understanding your own style and maybe even guessing at your in-laws can give you a whole new perspective.
And your family of origin, wow, that has a massive impact. When two people marry, they bring their whole family cultures with them. Norms, expectations, they can clash. Big time. Maybe one family stresses tradition, making decisions together. The other values independence, doing your own thing. Just recognizing these deep-seated differences, talking about them openly, that builds understanding. Helps you adapt instead of just feeling constantly misunderstood or judged.
Exactly. And then there are cultural and generational differences too. They shape everything: family roles, how people talk, what they value. If you approach these differences with curiosity, respectfully, you can bridge gaps instead of building walls. But what about our reactions? Because sometimes, man, it feels like they know exactly which buttons to push.
Yes. Exploring your own triggers. This is where it gets really powerful. Often, in-law behavior hooks into our own unresolved stuff. Feeling not good enough, self-doubt, maybe needing control or pain from our own childhood family. Understanding this isn't just about self-awareness, it's about taking your power back. When you see how their behavior connects to your old wounds, you kind of disarm the trigger. You get to choose your response instead of just reacting based on old patterns. It turns frustration into a chance for real personal growth. Mastery, even.
That's a huge shift in thinking. So how do we actually foster positive interactions in the middle of all this? Especially if it feels like you're always walking on eggshells.
It's about finding common ground where you can. Shared activities, maybe. Practicing active listening, empathy, even when it's hard. You prioritize your marriage, absolutely, but you also try to maintain connections with the wider family in a way that feels healthy for you. And balancing commitments is key. Making time for both families, but also carving out time for self-care and for your primary relationship. Support each other through it. Managing family obligations can be really draining emotionally.
And looking long-term, these aren't just one-off conversations, are they? You need ongoing strategies and sometimes maybe outside help, like checking in regular with your partner. Are the boundaries working? Do we need to adjust things? Family situations change, dynamics shift. Boundaries might need to shift too. Consistency builds trust, yeah, but being adaptable keeps the boundaries relevant.
That's a really important point. And don't forget the power of having a support network outside the family. Friends, mentors, people who've been there. Just sharing what you're going through can be so validating. Get some perspective.
And finally, if you feel like you've tried everything and the tension is still there, don't be afraid to seek professional help. Couples counseling, marriage therapy, it can make a massive difference. A therapist can mediate, help improve communication, manage those tricky family expectations. It's especially crucial if one partner is really struggling to get on board or stuck in that FOG we talked about. Individual therapy can help too, for inner healing, feeling empowered, learning coping skills for stress, and maybe even toxic behavior. It's definitely not a sign of failure. It's proactive. It's about investing in your relational health, your well-being.
And ultimately, letting go of expectations is huge. Not in a giving up kind of way, but shifting your focus, their behavior, their opinions. That's their movie, reflecting their world. It's not really about you. When you release those expectations, you're not settling. You're reclaiming your peace, no matter what they do or say. You don't control them, but you absolutely control your response. And that, maybe more than anything, brings real joy and peace.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, remember the power you have with clear, respectful boundaries. It's an act of self-preservation. It protects your marriage, that united front with your partner, non-negotiable. Consistently enforcing those boundaries, that's how everyone learns the new rules. And understanding the psychology underneath attachment triggers that empowers you, turns potential conflict into growth.
Yeah, these relationships, especially with in-laws, they take work. Patience, too. It's about finding that balance, right? Maintaining connections while safeguarding what matters most, your marriage.
And as you think about all this, here's a final thought for you. If boundaries really are about defining what you will tolerate, what unaddressed X in your own in-law situation are you ready to finally respond to with a clear why?
We really hope these strategies help you build healthier, more harmonious family dynamics, and ultimately find more peace in your life. Join us next time for another deep dive into life's complex topics.